Little Green Men kicked off Season 2 of The X-Files after Deep Throat had been murdered and The X-Files shut down. We begin with Mulder narrating about the Voyager probe and the Golden Record, which will one day be used by Megatron to try and alter human history. But that's not the plot that concerns Mulder. It's the recent, at least at this time, effort to detect signals from intelligent life in the universe. So far, no one has sent proof of intelligent life to us. Although since we're beaming NASCAR and Real Housewives into space, the same could be said for our species. Well, at the facility in Puerto Rico, one piece of equipment comes to life. A transmission is incoming, and the dot matrix printer gets to work. But the real shock is that what comes through is the music and message from the gold record. After the titles, we've gone from the tape recording of the message in Puerto Rico to a big tape recorder in a motel where Mulder is monitoring some criminals. Scully, on the other hand, is doing a hands-on lecture on how to perform an autopsy. A body donated to science, hopefully. So the reason I said hopefully is because this, in proximity with the whole underground conspiracy theories, shadowy people, all of that, reminded me that in 2016, Reuters investigated the little oversight involved when you, want to donate your body to science. In many cases, it turns out that it's not simply a case of, here's the body, thank you, let me go deliver this to science right away. What happens is the body winds up being sold, and for a profit no less. And in the horrifying case of a woman in Arizona who died of Alzheimer's, not for Alzheimer's research, as was kind of intended. No, instead what the company did was they cut off the cadaver's hand, cremated the hand, and then sent the ashes to the woman's son, claiming that they had cremated the entire body after it had been used for science. And then, despite the fact that it was explicitly indicated on the form the body was only to be used for medical research, the company then sold the corpse to the Army, which is against Army regulations because they didn't have the permission of those who donated the body. And so they used the cadaver to test the effects of IEDs on people in vehicles, specifically putting her body in a chair and setting off a bomb underneath her. I include this horrific story for two amusing coincidences. First, that the owner of the company, who has actually been convicted of fraud for his business practices, is named Stephen Gore. That's not meant as a dig at the former vice president. I just find it surprising that a man who abuses people's corpses is named Gore. The other is that the man who learned his mother was blown up by the Army lives in a town named Surprise! Oh, and the mayor of Surprise, Arizona is Skip Hall. You know, this whole thing is like it was made up by a writer who's on a deadline. Alright, I'm sorry for that diversion. Anyway, during all this, Mulder has acted like Scully doesn't exist, but when he finds the picture of his sister face down with a post-it note on it, he knows that means to meet her that night.
From back there, you look like him.
Him?
Deep Throat.
He's dead, Scully. I attended his funeral at Arlington through 8-power binoculars from 1,000 yards away.
We all grieve in our own ways. Some of us choose to use the tools of stalking. Mulder proves how not paranoid to the point of arguable dysfunction he is by chastising Scully for meeting with him when she doesn't have any information for him. They have to always assume that they are being watched, even when she says that she followed every possible way of avoiding being tailed and has seen no evidence that anyone has been following her. She's concerned that he seems to be broken by all that's happened. So he mentions George Hale, the designer of the huge Hale telescope in San Diego.
Actually, the idea was presented to Hale one night while he was playing billiards. An elf climbed in his window and told him to get money from the Rockefeller Foundation for a telescope.
Makes sense. Legolas is really good at spotting things far away. If you're curious, Hale did have some issues, and much the same way Newton getting hit on the head by an apple, the little elf is connected with Hale just like that. You know, likely apocryphal. I mean, apocryphal that he hallucinated an elf, obviously. I'm going to take it as a given you know that he was never actually visited by elves. Fortunately, Mulder does not use this to say that Hale was inspired by aliens that he perceived as elves, but rather he holds it up as a sign that maybe Mulder himself is nuts. Maybe he never saw his sister abducted. It's just all the product of a sick mind. So Scully assures him, no, you have seen things that we haven't been able to explain. You go on believing that intelligent life flew across the galaxy for the express purpose of kidnapping human beings and doing butt stuff with them. The parking garage where they've had their meeting is for the Watergate Hotel, so it segues into a flashback because the night of the abduction, the Nixon tapes were being discussed on TV. Mulder wants to watch The Magician, but he fights with his sister over the TV, saying, "Get out of my life." These two, by the way, are the worst child actors I've seen in a long time.
Now look, the fuse is blown.
That is exactly the same way I'd expect that line to be spoken in a "what are you doing, step bro" porno. But soon, there's bright light, an inexplicable silhouette in the doorway, and his sister floating away. Mulder goes for his dad's gun, but it's too late. She's gone. In the present, Mulder is summoned to Capitol Hill late at night to meet with the senator that's been helping him, Matheson, who is listening to Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 2, the first song that's on the Golden Record. Mulder apologizes that his support only ended in flames, but the real reason for this meeting is that transmission that we saw at the beginning. The senator says that Mulder needs to head there right away. He's got maybe 24 hours at most. After that, the team being sent in to deal with the evidence is going to arrive, and they've been authorized to use deadly force. And that's bad. I mean, it sounds bad, doesn't it? In fact, I'm fairly certain there's a team out there called Tom Clancy's Deadly Force. The next day, a taped interview between Skinner and Scully plays where he questions her about Mulder not showing up for his assignment. The cigarette-smoking man is listening, and while Scully may not know where Mulder is, he's confident that Scully will find him. Tracking him down was basically 80% of her job last year. She heads to his apartment, listens to his unhelpful answering machine messages, and tries his computer. '90s password, when the cutting-edge password security was Weed Man, but you spelled it with the E's replaced by 3's. Compared to that, Mulder's Trust No numeral 1 isn't that bad, although Scully guesses it and gets inside, so I guess maybe it's not that great. She finds a file with galactic coordinates and prints it out, but someone is coming. A couple of government agents that openly admit that they're watching Mulder's place. Scully lies that she came by to feed the fish, like she always does when Mulder heads to the Caribbean, and manages to use this as cover to swipe the printout on her way out. The old spilled fish food gets 'em every time.